Okay, quick note before we get started. I have food in my teeth this entire episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, every time I smile, you're gonna see food, like right here, okay? Now, I noticed this after I shot it and I was like, gee, I guess I could redo the entire thing, but that would take hours, and I'm not doing that. So feel free to laugh at me, make fun of me, and post comments, post a snapshot. Here's Jeff doing his thing with food in his teeth, whatever you like, okay? Full license to make fun of the food in the teeth. And a big lesson learned here. Before, you go to record, look in the mirror and smile to see if there's food in your teeth. Because people are going to be watching this for thousands of years. Right? Or at least a week. Okay? On with the show. I am Jeff Ado. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. My guest today is me. All right, I'm doing another solo cast. I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts. I got a lot of things to share. You know what I mean? And sometimes I just like spending time with myself, talking to myself. All right? Am I crazy? Yeah. The name of the podcast is Lunacy. Know what I mean? Go figure. All right? I didn't name it Lunacy because I was sane. Nah, I'm a lunatic through and through. What is the point of this podcast? That is the question. Because if you don't have a point to your podcast, then you have a pointless podcast. And what's the point of a pointless podcast? Ain't no point. What you're left with is a fucking sphere, which is dope. I mean, everybody loves a sphere. You know what I mean? Spheres are fucking cool. But that's not the point. See, there can be no point on a sphere, period. Get it? The point of this podcast is to illuminate the importance of what it is that we're thinking, what it is that I am thinking, presumably what it is that you are thinking. And as I'm sure you're aware, this is not an easy tiger to tame. There's a Buddha, Manjushri, he's called, and he's riding a dragon. This Buddha sitting in Zazen, cross-legged on top of a fucking dragon, okay? Now, the dragon is the mind, and the Buddha is riding the mind, and the mind is a dragon, to be sure. So, taming a dragon, well, really that's impossible, but it is possible. It's one of those senses just right there on the edge. You know what I mean? Can we do it? I don't know. Maybe we can. Maybe we can tame the mind. I believe we can. So the point of this podcast is to point out that we really need to be conscious of our thoughts and what we're thinking. And like Manjushri riding the dragon, we need to let those thoughts go. Let them be what they are. Allow them to exist in our minds and give them space. If you're listening and it's appropriate, I want us all to take a deep breath. And if it's not appropriate, I don't know what you're doing, all right? What are you doing? You can't take a deep breath. Maybe you're at the movies. That's really weird that you're listening to a podcast at the movies. Even so, you're watching this movie, listening to the podcast. That makes me very happy. It's weird, but I like it. Guess what? You could definitely still take a deep breath. No one would notice. All right, so let's do this. Let's take a deep breath. Ready? And just allow the mind to settle. Alan Watts once talked about if you're trying to tame your thoughts with your mind, to stop your mind from thinking, it's like trying to calm the waters with an iron, like a clothing iron. You're just going to make waves. You're just going to go even crazier. But if you put the iron away and you just let the mind settle, then it becomes much more still. And you're able to see the mud settle to the bottom and the waves subside. Even if the waves are rough and wavy, you just allow them to be as if you were a sailor on the sea. Ooh, that's a good one. That is a rhymey rhyme. Poet didn't know it right there. You know what I mean? Go for it. Boom. Dropping mics, people. Just kidding. I would never do that. It's a very expensive microphone. Respect. part of the goal here, in my estimation, is to settle the mind so much that the unconscious can become conscious in a good way. Allow it to be, allow those thoughts to exist, and then don't get attached to those thoughts. Just let them fly. Later on, I'm going to talk about a bird. Okay? It's like that. Let the bird fly. Let the birds fly. The birds are the thoughts of your mind. Let the clouds pass over your head, because they're going to pass anyway, Don't grab onto the effing cloud, okay? It's a great metaphor, because it's like, what does it look like when you try to grab onto a cloud? You're just reaching and grasping and trying to grab it like a fucking maniac. But guess what? Cloud's still going to move, man. The thoughts are still going to come. It's still going to pass. Let the cloud move, okay? I see you. I see that thought. I observe that thought. I'm engaging my witness. I'm engaging my observer, letting it pass. How do I be more present right now to the actual trees and the actual clouds and the actual things and people in front of me? That's the goal. How to be more present. If reality is fractal, like in nature, if we are experiencing a reality that is constantly splitting and manifesting into fractal patterns, which we are, then that's something to really consider, something to really think about. You take pretty much anything under a microscope and you'll see it. Sweet potatoes, pineapples, clouds, rivers. Romanesco, it's a very good cauliflower derivative, delicious, and it looks like a fractal. It's amazing. That's the way of nature, this ever-expanding pattern. And if that's what's going on, and it most certainly is what's going on, look, I don't know what the flipping word here is, all right? Fractal, like fractalization. I don't know, but there should be a word like fractalize. That's all I'm saying, all right? Call me Shakespeare, Jeff, Shakespeare, Ado, if you like, or don't. I don't care, but I'm going to use that word from now on. That we are fractalizing our reality. If we're thinking certain thoughts and those thoughts fractalize into the future or into the present, rather, like the ongoing present, right? Building into the ongoing present, which is really a better way to think about the future, right? Because really and truly, all we have is now. And we are creating things, experiences, and material things in the ongoing now with how it is that we are thinking. And there's a lot of things that are guiding the way that we think. It's our experience. It's really our interpretation of our experience. It's also outside influence. It could even be like, parasites that we ingested at some point that have us thinking crappy thoughts. For sure. Could be, alcohol. Okay. Offense intended alcohol, especially in large quantities. Now, look, you may have no problem with alcohol or think you have no problem, and that's cool if it's not a thing for you. For me, there's no question that my mood the day after drinking historically has been routinely very shitty, which has negatively impacted my quality of life, my outlook, my productivity, etc. So I got beef with the booze, all right? Still have it sometimes, but rarely and with intention. Our thoughts fractalizing into the ongoing present are also deeply influenced by fear-based media, right? Scaring the shit out of us. It's all going to hell in a handbasket, man. The world's going to end. Politics is bananas, especially right now, etc. ad nauseum. Insert Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity here, please. Turn it off. That's my recommendation. Don't let the fearmongers hijack your life. Because here's the thing. Those thoughts that we have, that we create, they fractalize into the ongoing present. So what does that actually mean? That means that our reality and the way that we perceive things, but not only the way we perceive things, like literally our actual reality shifts and transforms based on how we are thinking of it right now. Now, does that mean that the trees I see outside my window are going to appear different based on how I'm thinking? Probably not. Although my appreciation for those trees could alter drastically based on what I'm thinking. If I'm in a place of fear and dread, I don't even notice the trees. If I'm in a place of gratitude, those same trees are beautiful. Whole worlds open up with those trees, man. I start thinking, I'm grateful for all this oxygen that these trees are making for me. And ain't it funny how the branches reach up into the atmosphere and get smaller and smaller, just like the roots digging down into the earth below, searching for water? Ain't it funny how my lungs, capillaries in my lungs, look like roots and branches as they are turning that oxygen into energy for me? I mean, that's different. Totally different world of those trees. But if I'm knee deep in fear, the space around me transforms. It gets tense. You can feel it. And I'm sure you can relate to this. Think of a time when you walked into a room and someone was grieving at a funeral, perhaps, or you walked in the room right after a couple had a fight. It's not just that you feel empathy for them. You feel the weight in the room of the tension that has been created. That expression, you could cut it like a knife. Well, that's because you could. You really can feel it. Whereas if you walk into, say, like a yoga store, like there's this yoga store near where I live, and it's got all kinds of beautiful instruments and spiritual books and statues of Jesus and Buddha, etc. And I don't know what this guy does, all right, but it just feels great in there. Like the energy is pure. He's got candles lit, incense. You walk in there, you just instantly feel great. Instantly great. Bad day, yoga store. Boom. I used to do a lot of Zen sessions, which is where you meditate for like 5 to 7 days straight. It's really intense and really beautiful. And at the end of the session, there's so much chi built up in the room that you can feel it. The energy is so pure and beautiful. These people have been wrestling with their thoughts for days on end to get to a place of stillness, a place of peace. And when you walk in the room, that's what you feel. Like I remember when I was studying pretty intensively, sometimes I couldn't make the session. I was busy with work or whatever, but I would go on the Sunday at the end when they're completing for the final closing ceremony and the Dharma talk, which is it's basically like church, but Buddhist temple, right? You walk into that room and wow, you just instantly feel so great. Your heart opens. It feels so much lighter, so much more movement, more capacity. It's a really beautiful space that has been created and worked for over the last 5 days to have this incredibly beautiful space. But the amazing thing is that anybody off the street, yours truly included, could just walk in there and immediately experience this beautiful level of freedom and love that has been earned and worked for by this community of people together. Because they've collectively created this space in which they're now dwelling. This space of focus and meditation or prayer through zazen, which is really just sitting, just meditating. Allowing all the fear and insanity to settle to the bottom of the pond so that the ongoing present can be filled with the light that is already here. In sesshin, everyone is really trying to find the way of being enlightened, okay? Where you can maintain an enlightening posture and an enlightening way of being, or maybe just have that big, beautiful bang of actually experiencing enlightenment like the Buddha, or having an enlightenment moment, or samadhi, which is prolonged experience of awakening, where it's like, oh, whoa, okay. I see the beauty of what is before me and what is here now. I really accept that I am guided, that the universe is working for me, through me, with me. I really accept that all these things in my world are working in balance. Like looking out at the cosmos, right? You don't see giant trash heaps out there. You just see stars, beautiful stars, giant groups of stars and planets and gases, etc. And then, when you see the actual trash heaps here, it somehow makes sense. There's some balance there as well. And there's also something that I can do, where I can be of service, right? Maybe pick up some trash. And then guess what? I get purpose out of that. All right, I'm picking up trash. What do? I pick up trash. So there could be a moment of samadhi where I start to see that the universe really truly exists for me, and that I exist for the universe, and that the universe is always feeding me love in the midst of challenge and strife and like evil shit. Even if I don't see it, there's a gift in it. Take the the fires in Los Angeles that just happened. Really, really super extra tragic with extra tragic sauce. And, some of that, a lot of it was intentional. There was a lot of arson going on. People were burning down homes. They were going to neighborhoods that were on fire and they were setting more fires. Some people say they were lasers, man. Now, I don't know if I believe that. Seems pretty crazy that anyone would do anything like that, but who knows what's going on. I talked to this guy at the Austin airport who gave me a ride in his cart from the rental car lot to the terminal. And he was like, yep, I talked to this flight attendant who's flying into Los Angeles during the fires, and she looked out the window and saw a beam going down to the earth like a big laser. Now, I don't know if that's true. You can't really see lasers unless they hit dust or mist, which I guess is possible. Maybe she was wearing infrared goggles. Probably not. I said that he said that she said lasers. Suspect on the suspect, but who knows? Regardless, there's evil presence in those fires. Arsonists are actually burning people's homes down, looters, etc. And, I have friends who lost almost all of their stuff, whatever they didn't take with them in their car, they lost it, it burned. Families. And wow, that's like a cataclysmic event in your life. It's a huge trauma, huge drama. It's huge, but there is a beautiful gift in that. Now, if you experience the fire and this is offending you right now because you're in a place where you're just like, go jump in the nearest lake and make sure there's a thin layer of ice on top before you talk to me about this. I get it. However, there is a gift. Now, I'm not sure what the gift is for the people who are experiencing it, but I can say for the community, there's a big gift. Oh, we're related. Oh, we need to help each other out here. We need to support the firefighters. I got to make sure my neighbor's okay. You weren't checking on your neighbor before. Now you're checking on your neighbor. There's a deeper sense of community that's happening. Burning all of your stuff, having all of your things go up in flames gives you a certain freedom that you didn't have before. It's a new start. It's a fresh start. The phoenix rising from the ashes. That may be you in this scenario. In any cataclysmic event like this that we survive, there are a lot of gifts. There's a profound gift of the ability and capacity to restructure one's life thoughtfully. What do I want to put in my body? What do I want to put into my thoughts, into my mind, right? Which, they've somehow proved that the mind actually exists outside of the body, which is, a nice conundrum to puzzle upon. But yeah, the mind, your thoughts extend beyond you in this fractalized way that we've been discussing. So then what am I going to ingest? How is it that I'm going to move forward? What patterns did I have before this thing happened that don't serve me, that I can identify and release and let go of? Because now there's perspective, like real perspective. Now, you don't have to have all of your things burn in a fire to have this perspective, but if that's what happened, it's a bit more viscerally available to you. You can see, I had this pattern that I really need to get rid of, and you can nibble away at it. There's a phrase that I really love that goes, you can transform or you can change. But really, in this context, you can transform either from inspiration or desperation. Something terribly awful can happen to you, which forces you to reconsider your whole notion of reality, or you can get inspired. And getting inspired is really up to you, right? It's really the point. For me, it's the point of this podcast. How do I continue to inspire myself? How do I continue to inspire others? At least make that attempt so that I am transforming based on inspiration rather than having my house burnt down. That's the prayer for me. And if I'm doing that, if I'm really looking for inspiration, then, it's easier for me to see that I had this pattern that I really need to get rid of. And then, I can nibble away at it. And that's a really good way to go. I do that. I think it's very, very effective to just nibble away at it every day, create some discipline around it that allows me to move into a new pattern scheme, right? A new discipline. You can nibble away at it, but when something major like this happens, it gives you a more profound opportunity to do that. It's like clearing the decks. What do you want to create now? What do you want to make now? So even with events that happen in our lives, conflict that happens to us in our lives in a way, even if it's like super tragic and terrible, and you're like, that's bottom line, undeniably fucked up that thing happened, right? You got robbed, your house burnt down, you were assaulted, whatever, like just some really evil thing happened. If something befalls you, befalls me that is really tragic, what's the gift? If I ask myself, what's the gift? That's super liberating. First of all, recognizing that I survived, that here I am to tell the tale. That's a gift in and of itself. Recognizing that I'm not in that moment anymore, even though it may haunt me because I haven't properly processed it. It may still haunt me because I haven't properly processed it or had the time or training to do so, which is probably like 99% of humanity. Maybe 95%, I don't know. Maybe that's 5% of people who really know how to properly process things and actually let them go. I suspect it's less than that. I think if it was 5%, we would all experience a profound transformation in humanity. But safe to say, most of us don't know how to process it properly, these terrible things that happen to us, because we're not taught that in school. Now, why are we not taught that in school? I don't know. All right. This is one of the major puzzles of my life. I don't get it. All right. But definitely that would be a really great class. Processing, how to process your perceived traumas. That would be amazing. Love would also be a great class to have as well. How do you love more? And that can extend into all kinds of things. There's plenty of literature and things to read and write about that. Plenty of homework you can do that for the rest of you. You can do that for the rest of time, really. Get people on the love train. I mean, not the romantic love train. That's fine. That's great. You can study that too, the erotic love train. But I mean also the eros that exists for this life, for being here. And the agape, which is, love for creator. And the amiki, right, which is love of brotherhood, sisterhood, family. There are so many different forms of love, and they all spring from the same source. And very much, they all have this same quality to them that exists in gratitude. Like right now, I'm really grateful for the mountains, right? I've been spending some time in the mountains. Got to do some snowboarding yesterday with a really good friend of mine. And I was just struck by how grateful I am that mountains exist and that they have snow on them. And somebody figured out a way to go down them on a board or boards and play. I'm grateful for this mural behind me, this provocative and stimulating artwork that my friend Miles Tolan painted for me, for this podcast. I'm really grateful to be alive. And when I get really present to how grateful I am, it moves me. I am moved. If I sit into it more, I'll start crying, which I'm not going to do for you right now. All right? Not yet anyway. That's where you want to be, in my opinion. You want to be sitting on the edge of tears or even just crying, in gratitude and joy. That's the field that I want to create in my life. That's the fractalic pattern. That's the fractalization that I want to create into my ongoing present. All right, going back to the traumatic incident, the fire. What is the gift? Looking at what is the gift. How do I process it? Like, how do I really grieve for what happened? And what do I need to learn from this? I hear myself saying these things, and it's like I hear the cliche coming out of my mouth. The cynic in me is like, dude, really? What's the gift? Get the fuck out of here. He's right there. Getting your house burned down is awful, and it stinks. Literally, figuratively, metaphorically, the whole thing. It's definitely one of the most horrible things that can happen in one's life. And the cynic can very easily take that over and cast it into a lifelong victim fractalization, for sure. And other people would agree with that, and they do. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with dedicating your life to living as a victim, to making that part of your ongoing present. People do that all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not freedom. And I'm all about freedom. Asking oneself, what do I have to learn from this? That's me taking the reins back from my own life, which is really the whole point of what I'm trying to say here. Are we fractalizing into our ongoing present the trauma that we experienced that we didn't process? Are we fractalizing into our ongoing present being a victim? Now, look, I'm not saying that there aren't victims out there, and I'm not saying it isn't a legitimate time for one to be a victim. In the moment of the trauma, I am a victim, and there's nothing wrong with me being a victim. There's nothing wrong with that. The issue comes in me perpetuating that victim mentality into my ongoing present forever and always. And then that victim mentality becomes a crutch that my identity relies on to survive. Well, we survived that awful thing. That awful thing is probably going to happen again. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? I wasn't sure what that metaphor meant. I looked it up. Speculation says that when people started living in apartments, they would hear one shoe drop and then wait for the other shoe to drop. We're constantly just waiting for this terrible thing to happen again that happened to us before because we're expecting it, because we're fractalizing it into our ongoing present, our future. That shit is going to happen again. Your house is going to burn down again. You're going to have a bad relationship again. Your dad's going to yell at you again. Mom's going to yell at you again. You're going to get embarrassed in front of your friends again. The teacher's going to yell at you again. You're going to fuck up that line on stage, right? You're going to get some bad feedback, right? It's going to happen. Be ready. Be ready for it to happen again so you can feel terrible. You know what? Just feel terrible. Right now. Feel terrible now. If you feel terrible now, then when it hits, it won't hit so hard because you're already feeling like shit. You're already feeling terrible. This is the equation of the ego. It's absolutely insane. Offense intended, ego. This is the way that the mind works. And if this is offensive, be offended. Be offended, mind. Be offended, ego. Be offended because who's in control? How do I take the power back in my own life and not be a victim and not be, an ego that is wholeheartedly attached to this traumatic thing that happened in the past, that happened long ago? It's not in my present. I'm putting it in my present. I filed it into my present. Landmark education talks about this in a really beautiful way, right? That we file our past in our future. We take our past and we file it in the future. Why would we do that? We get attached to things. In Buddhism, it's super clear that we're attached to things. And we need to look at being non-attached to things. Let the bird fly away. Imagine this hummingbird lands on your hand and it's so beautiful and you think to yourself, oh my God, this is the most incredible, profound moment. I can't believe this beautiful hummingbird, this symbol of focus and purity, landed on my hand. This is a miracle. And then the bird flies away. The bird flies away. And you think, oh, for shame, the bird flew away. What am I to do now, Jezebel? I shall never find happiness again on this God-forsaken earth. I am ruined. That was fun for me. What does a bird do? It flies. But that's us, right? We're constantly not wanting the bird to fly away. We want to hold the bird. And then if we did, then the bird would die, because the bird's got to fly to live, right? It's got to go get some nectar somewhere. That's what birds do, right? Go back to its bird family, right? Feed the other birds. Birds are not attached. They don't get attached to the traumas. They definitely grieve. That's actually observed. And there's certainly intelligence that has been observed. Lots of really smart birds out there. There's all these different parrots that could talk. And finally, in this day and age, we're starting to acknowledge that intelligence more. For so long, we were just like, we're the only intelligent beings on the planet. Nope, don't think so there, Bab. Also, what we call intelligence is not always intelligence. Delusion, on the other hand, we're very good at delusion. Experts at it. We were excellent at fractalizing bullshit into our bullshit matrix of bullshit. That's the quote right there, people. What's the most famous Jeff Odo quote, you guys? We're very good at fractalizing bullshit into our bullshit matrix of bullshit. The things that come out of my mouth sometimes, I don't even know. All right, back to the attachments. We are constantly attached all the time. We want to know what's happening next. We got to know so we can survive. It's like we survived it before, this really shitty thing that happened before. It's probably going to happen again. And then also there's physiological components that go along with this, right? If you watch this movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? They do a really nice study of this. When you experience a traumatic event and you get really sad or you feel super ashamed or guilty or extremely terrified, you actually create cells in your brain, neuropeptides, that feed on that energy, that vibration. You have felt super ashamed, more than likely, in this life. When you feel that shame, you feel it. You really feel it. Just for not fun, try and connect to that feeling for a minute. That shame. I'm looking for myself right now. I can feel it in my solar plexus and my heart. That's where I feel it. But also there are these corresponding neuropeptides in my brain that exist that got created the first time I felt that way. And these cells are alive. They are receptors. And the only way that they can survive is if they receive that extreme shame or other bad feeling again. I have to experience that extreme shame again, otherwise they die. And guess what? Everything that lives wants to continue to live. Nothing wants to die. Part of the really super weird thing about the universe, right? This life that we live, right? Nothing living wants to die. Nothing. So these neuropeptides, well, they want to live. And the only way that they can live is if they experience extreme shame. So how do they experience extreme shame? If something really shameful happens, right? You fuck it up. You have to fuck it up big time. So in the background, consider in your subconscious that the ego is trying to manifest a way that something can happen in the ongoing present that's going to make me feel a tremendous amount of shame. Something that could happen that's going to make me feel like a real piece of shit. That's going to make me so embarrassed in front of my friends or a group of people or on stage so that I can recreate the effect of that traumatic event that happened before. Which one could argue, and I would, that what ties me to that experience and makes those neuropeptides so powerful is my level of attachment to that shitty thing that happened. It is the level of attachment that I have consciously or subconsciously put to that thing that I consider to be a core part of my identity, who I am. I am this wounded bird who got yelled at when he was 5 or got super embarrassed by the teacher or whatever it is. This is a racket. Landmark would call this a racket, right? Because it is. Up front, it's all smiles and I'm fine. How are you? How's it going? Selling ice cream and cookies. But out back, they're running numbers and selling crack out the basement window. So that it gets all fucked up like it was before. So I get to experience the same level of fuck-upness again. And my neuropeptides that are attached to guilt, shame, and fear get to live. So that I continue to fractalize my past traumas into my ongoing present and suffer until I kick the bucket. And that is super depressing, that we are like that. A bunch of zombies getting hijacked by bad programming until we croak. But as far as I can tell, that's how it actually works. Now, you might think I'm crazy. You might think that's a load of horseshit. Your science is off. You're nuts. That's not how it works. My attachments to the past, my traumatic history does not create my reality going forward. Just test it in your life. I would love for you to prove me wrong. Really, I would. Do your own experiment on your own life. See what happens. When these traumatic events happen, are they tied to the past? Because we've all got them, and we're going to have more of them. Shitty things happen all the time. If shitty things didn't happen, we wouldn't have any growth. Shit happens. Yes, that's true. But it's lacking in depth. Shit has to happen in order for goodness to prevail. There's this diluted idea that, maybe it could just be fucking unicorns and butterflies all the time. Or that I could just be happy all the time. If I take enough Xanax, I'll be happy. We put so much value on happiness. Happiness on its own is worthless. There is no happiness without sadness. It all exists on a spectrum. You have to experience the grief, right? My dad died, coming up on 2 years. Guess what? That's a wound I feel today. Just think about it. Now, I love my father. I love my dad. We had a really great relationship. I'm very fortunate. I'm not just very fortunate. I crafted that relationship. I intended that relationship. I created it with him. We talked about it. I took responsibility for my part of the story that I had about my dad. I had it that he didn't support me, didn't love me, didn't care about me, right? I brought that up to him. I said, that's my story about you. And he was like, of course that's not true. And I was like, okay, great. He was crying at this point. And I said, what I really want to create for our relationship is unconditional love with you. And he said, yes, through tears. Yeah. And it hurts that he died. But that's what happens. We die, right? So the fact that I'm actually able to grieve my father brings me so much more joy and honor for him in a real way. And it gives me a deeper understanding of love and the human condition and what he had to offer, what he gave to me and what my ancestors gave to me through him. Now, look, you might have a terrible relationship with your father. I don't know, man. I'm lucky. It's a good example for me, right? And by the way, not a perfect dad. He was not a perfect dad. But as an adult, as a man, I reclaimed that relationship. And also, he transformed. He became a much more loving, open man. And when he left this world, I was right there by his side. I sang him out with the song I wrote for him on his deathbed. I honor my father deeply. I love you, Dad. And, it's a little bit of digression, but not really, right? That's the point. This idea that we have to be happy all the time. No, it's inevitable that we're going to have more and more trauma. I don't really actually want to be happy all the time. I want to experience life as it moves forward and not be attached to the things of the past and have my ongoing present be free and clean and open. People think, you get enlightened and you're just happy all the time. It's just constant bliss. I don't know, man. Look, maybe that's the way that it is. I haven't met these gurus that exist, okay, that are just like pure bliss all the time, right? Do I think that's possible? Sure. But also, I bet you they get really sad sometimes too. They just experience it fully, 100%. So much of the point of life is to experience the full spectrum. How do I be like a baby, right? Babies. Mostly something happens, you can't see that they are experiencing some really awful dental pain because their teeth are growing in. Okay? It's awful and you can't see it. It hurts them bad. Imagine. And they cry. They cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. And then they're done crying. And when they're done crying, that's it. Smiles again. Happiness. Where's the milk? They don't dwell on it. I mean, can you imagine if the little baby was like, oh my God, I can't, Mom. My teeth hurt so bad, I can't take it. My teeth are always going to hurt, and I will be suffering for the rest of my life. Oh, the horror. I mean, can you imagine if they just clung to it, right? That terrible pain that they experienced. But that's what we do. We're bad babies. Be a good baby. Let it go. Don't be a bad baby. Be a good baby, baby. Allow yourself to experience the trauma, the trial, the pain, and then just let it go. How do I let it go? Well, first of all, I fully experience it. I allow myself to fully 100% experience it, and then I release it. I declare it complete. I acknowledge that there's an issue, acknowledge that there's this thing that happened, and then declare it, right? And process it somehow. Like talk to a friend, a loved one, a therapist, go do like a wailing wall, talk to somebody who really cares about you, a brother or sister, right? Could be your family, although That can be wonky because they may have caused the thing. I also mean like a brother from your brotherhood, right? A good friend. Hashtag life hack. Have brothers. Have men you can count on in your life. If you're a man, if you're a woman, have sisters. Have women you can really count on in your life, really that are going to support you, push you forward. Our lives do not have to be composed of the traumas that we've experienced. That does not have to define us. When you go to St. Peter or whatever happens when you kick it, okay? When you do the life review that people talk about that have died and come back, are you just going to sit there and go, well, these are all the terrible things that happened to me? Is that going to be what your life is about? I really hope not. I really hope that's not the deal. I certainly hope it's not the deal for you. I hope you fractalize a beautiful reality. Truly. Because so many people don't. And my suspicion is that if you're listening to this program, then you have a deep desire not to fractalize that into your ongoing present. I know for me, I want nothing more than to fractalize my reality and for you to fractalize your reality into something beautiful instead of fractalizing it into some terrible trauma that we refuse to process or we don't know how to process fully. That we fractalize reality into art, right? That we write a song or make a painting or do that research that we've always been wanting to do, right? Go be an arborist, architect, whatever your true dream is. Fractalize that into reality. Make that your thing. Don't make the sadness, the experience long ago that you already survived your thing. Don't hang your hat on that. Don't let the victim take over. It wants to, and it will, and it does. Don't let it. Reclaim your sovereignty for who you are. Reclaim my sovereignty for who I am. It is an ongoing and constant battle, and it is a battle that we can win. It's a battle that we will continue to fight, to be sure. And going back to Manjushri, a lot of times he's sitting on a dragon. In many other depictions, he's carrying a sword. Why is he carrying a sword? It's because he's cutting off those things that are holding him back so that he can fly. And so if we cut off those things that are holding us back, if we fully experience them and then cut them free, then we don't carry them into our ongoing present. Then we're able to actually be more present. And that's my wish for you, for me, for us. Okay, a little bonus content. I'm recording this after I started the editing process. I mentioned in the podcast the song that I wrote for my dad on his deathbed. And seeing as how it's going to be 2 years on March 8th since he passed on, I want to share it with you. So it's for you, Papa. Sometimes the saddest things in life are the sweetest. Sometimes the sweetest are so sad. Now the time we had or didn't have is over. All I can say is thank you, Dad. Wanted to know how much I love you. Wanted to know how much I care. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Even though endings are beginnings, just can't shake it, don't feel fair. Just can't shake it, don't feel fair. It's been an honor to have known you. Watch a journey of the heart. Many closed you did open, till the day you did depart. Wanted to know how much I love you. Wanted to know how much I care. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Even though endings are beginnings, just can't shake shake it, don't feel fair. Just can't shake it, don't feel fair. I wish you well, I wish you freedom on your journey, so you don't linger here or dwell. And if the devil tries to take you, no, I would rescue you from hell. I would rescue you from hell. I want you to know how much I love you. Want you to know how much I care. Ooh, even though endings are beginnings. Just can't shake it, don't feel fair. Just can't shake it, don't feel fair. I just can't shake it, don't feel fair. Want you to know how much I love you. Miss you, Papa. I sincerely hope that this has been valuable for you. I really appreciate you listening. If you want to contribute to this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast. We're going through some changes right now. You may have noticed we're doing fewer podcasts. We're just doing twice a month right now, but that's going to increase soon enough. We are upgrading our whole system, and you'll have more opportunity to participate with me, us, what we're doing here. I really appreciate any and all of you that are spending the time to listen to this. I really hope that it's valuable. And I want you to know that I love you. I love you because I choose to love you. I love you because we're all in this together, because none of us really knows what the hell's going on here. And we're all trying to figure it out. So I really want you to know that I appreciate you, whoever you are, whatever, whatever skin bag you're in, right? Whatever your deal is, I want you to know I love you just for being alive. All right, everybody, I'll see you next time. Much love.